Throughout the world, there are many abandoned assets. Buildings, houses, mansions, cars, boats, airplanes. Many are clearly explained. Some end up becoming a brilliant project, while others end up becoming a real mystery. Like the case of a Boeing 737-200, which appeared practically intact and mysteriously in an old quarry located in a forest in Bali, Indonesia. Of course, there's a story behind it, which I will tell you soon. But how they got it there is the biggest mystery of the whole thing. Indeed, it's not new that a commercial plane, a Boeing 737-200, which had capacity for 130 passengers, is abandoned in an old quarry in Bali, Indonesia. However, only recently have people become aware of that aircraft, which is located in a very unusual place, in the middle of a ditch and surrounded by 2 limestone walls. The question everyone's asking, since the plane was found, of course, is how it got there, since it would be impossible for any plane to land in that spot. This particular aircraft is located near the Raya to Selatan Highway, on the outskirts of Pandawa Beach, where a limestone quarry used to be. Since nobody can say how it got there, different theories have emerged, each one crazier than the last, some presenting a little more logic. There were even some who ventured to say that it could be the plane from the ill-fated Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, but that's something completely ridiculous. Forgive my language. For starters, the missing model is much larger, as it's a 777 with a capacity for more than 300 passengers depending on its configuration. Just so you remember, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared from radars in March 2014, which was 10 years ago now, and practically nothing of the wreckage or any sign of the passengers have been found up until today. Without a doubt, this is one of the most regrettable cases in the history of modern aviation. About the 737 in the Bali quarry, the circulating information is that it was built in October 1982, and it went through several airlines, the last one being Mandala Airlines. The exact date when it stopped operating for Mandala is unclear, but by March 2013, it was moved to the former quarry. Some island residents believe that it was purchased by a very wealthy businessman with the plan to convert the Boeing into a restaurant. The interior of the plane has been thoroughly ransacked, obviously with the removal of parts and equipment that probably still had some use, or even because over the course of these many years, items were taken from the plane to be sold. Souvenir. Otherwise, except for natural wear and tear, the plane is practically intact. Unfortunately, from what they say, what was lacking, in fact, was financial resources to carry out the restaurant project. But even without the advancement of the project of its transformation, the Pandawa Boeing wasn't left in limbo or had to be completely dismantled. Someone had the brilliant idea of turning it into a tourist spot in the conditions in which it is. We're trying to find out how it was placed there, in that completely unexpected place. To find a large commercial plane is half the fun of the tour. Eventually, photos and videos of airplanes can come out of a place like that. But Bali doesn't just have this abandoned plane as an object of curiosity. In a residential area south of Kuta, and on a lot practically next to Dunkin' Donuts, there's another 737-200 aircraft, of which it's no idea who owns it or why it was taken to that location. The stories about this aircraft are also unproven. Some say a local businessman wanted to transform it into a house, others claiming it would be turned into a cinema or aviation museum. There are also those who suggest it would be a restaurant, but nothing like that. According to our production team's research, this plane, which previously had public access, ended up being used by a cafe, housed on the same land and now used as a flight simulator. There's a sign that invites visitors to have their crew day, of course. It's no longer free, like it was before becoming a coffee shop attraction. Another airplane, or rather the tail of a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, can be seen and visited by tourists and curious observers, also in the city of Bali. This curious piece is on the roof of an old shopping mall, Gate 88 Mall, which was eventually closed for financial reasons. However, sometime later, the building was bought and transformed into a co-working space, and the plane's tail was restored and converted into a sort of observation deck for visitors. The story of the DC-10 is perhaps the only one that has a well-connected chain that leaves no mystery to be unraveled. The plane belonged to different airlines, as is common in commercial aviation. Don't think that only people from lower classes buy used vehicles, because that's not the case. Airlines often buy used planes to save money, sometimes with over 20 years of flight. Initially acquired by British Caledonia Airways, it was sold to an American company that turned it into a cargo plane. This company sold the rebuilt plane to a cargo operator in Zimbabwe. The next stop was the city of Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, where the plane was dismantled. For the initial design of the mall, only its tail would be interesting, but as the mall never even opened, the piece remained on the roof until the building was reclaimed and restored, including the tail of the DC. To conclude our discussion about abandoned planes in Bali, this one will surprise you. Because anything, if used well, can be converted and bring great benefits to many people. Of course, money is the main sponsor of this kind of idea, and without it, not even the businessman I'm going to talk about now could reach his goal. There are many potential futures for planes that are retired from a specific airline. Depending on its condition, safety, and operation of its parts, the aircraft can be fully repaired and refurbished to return to the skies, either as a cargo or passenger plane. It can also have its better parts recycled and installed in other planes, which ends up being a form of savings for airlines. If you've ever flown or frequently fly, you can rest easy. If it's making use of at least one of these used parts, and it may well be, know that it has undergone thorough durability and functionality tests before being put back into service. This is, of course, the kind of thing that no airline discloses or provides information on if asked unofficially. As for this last plane I'm showing you here, which also once belonged to Mandala Airlines, it met a more dignified end, so to speak. According to CNN, in 2021, after being discarded by the airline, a Russian businessman and Bali resident named Felix Deming purchased it and moved it to a remote area. Part of his property and affixed to the top of a cliff on Nyanyang Beach. Yeah, they say money doesn't bring happiness. It might be true, but as we'll see in this example, if it wasn't for that money, not even a Russian businessman would have done what he did. He not only converted the old Boeing 737 into a luxury inn, but he started to make even more money from his venture. With 2 bedrooms and a swimming pool, the private jet villa, which is 150 meters above sea level, has been available for rent since April 2023, with daily rates starting from a mere $7,000. Cheap, isn't it? Jokes aside, Deming, who also owns the Bubble Bali hotel chain, says he originally considered the private plane for personal use, but quickly saw the potential to transform the aircraft into something truly special. Interestingly, the businessman said that when he was looking for an aircraft that could serve him, he found about 20 abandoned planes in Bali and other islands of the Indonesian archipelago. What makes the island a potential airplane graveyard? No one can say. According to Deming, it took a lot of work to assemble, transport, and reassemble an old 737 in the place where it is today. Just screws alone, they loosened more than 50,000 and retightened most of them. Apart from the missing parts, and he had to buy them. The result, as we can see, was surprising, let's face it. Very tasteful. $7,000 a night makes me think of something else. And you? Would you like to visit an abandoned plane? Not me. Until next time.